Hi everyone. I think it is time to shed some light on the fake news media that is operating us. The term fake news media is not actually sufficient enough to describe their intentional, deliberate, carefully executed, deceitful broadcasting of news tailored precisely to propagate their specific agenda upon us. This is how we are being brainwashed, guys. For example, a recent news article read, "Survey claims nearly 30% of Americans think Santa Claus should be female or gender neutral." One would then think 30% of 300 million Americans, that is 90 million, believe in this? But if you just care to consider the data set for this survey, you will realize that only 514 of the 4,000 people who were asked this question cared to respond. And of these 514, only 150 people thought so. So what happens is, when you just read this article without doing further research, you will just believe what the article's title says. You actually believe that 30% of Americans think Santa should be a female or gender neutral. You just have been brainwashed by this news media. Did you see how this happens? There you go. There's an example right there. So let's look at one of the most misinformed news in the recent days, which is the Ford Kavanaugh allegation. What Christine Ford presents is a quite believable scenario. Sadly believable, in fact. It's easy to believe how a high school teenager could get taken advantage of at a party where alcohol is involved by someone who is stronger than her. That's why, before watching her testimony, I was just reading whatever filtered news the media is presenting to me and felt a great deal of pity for her. I was perfectly willing to give her the benefit of doubt and believed that she was being probably sexually assaulted, if not by Brett Kavanaugh, then by someone else. But after I watched her testimony, I did more research and got new realizations and genuine questions I feel we all need to consider. Many of us did not care to look beyond the tailored news. But if you do, you will understand how well they played us. So we have here a case where a woman has come forward and claimed that something happened to her at a party 35 years ago. We are expected to drop everything and just believe that this happened because the accuser is a woman. If we were to reverse the roles here, if this was the confirmation for Judge Ford and Brett Kavanaugh actually is the one who came forward and said that she had groped him at a party sometime in the summer in the 1980s in a house, and that he couldn't remember the exact time and he keeps changing the time for 3 or 4 times. What would we assume of that? Would we drop everything and believe him? If not, why not? Doesn't this make us sexists? I mean, if the roles are reversed and we can't even fathom to think the other way, the possibility that the other way is possible. This is not a perfect case of predator and victim, but more a display of the sad state of the political divide, and even worse, this is a preview of what is to come, if not worse, in the future. Brett Kavanaugh was shortlisted as a potential Supreme Court nominee back in November 2017. But only in July 9th of 2018 was he announced as a nominee by President Trump. However, Kavanaugh has been a public figure long before this announcement. After the 2000 US presidential election, he joined the administration as White House staff secretary and was a central figure in its efforts to identify and confirm judicial nominees back in 2000. Kavanaugh was nominated to the US Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit by President Bush in 2003. Kavanaugh practiced law since 1990 and held positions in Ken Starr Associate Counsel, Federalist Society, etc. So, first question you may want to ask is, why did Dr. Ford wait all these years of her life while Brett Kavanaugh was influencing the judicial system all the way since 2000 at least, before which he's actually a lawyer? He has been influencing the judicial system and drafting policies. How come she finally decided to express her concern and her plight at this very moment, after there have already been 5 FBI investigations clearing him for the judicial post? By the way, the 6th bipartisan FBI investigation that was conducted solely because of the newfound allegations did not result in any substantial evidence to support Dr. Ford's claims. The letter that Dr. Ford insists to this day that she wanted it to be secret was first delivered to Senator Feinstein on July 30th. If Dr. Ford's intention is to maintain secrecy of the allegations, either because she feared for her own privacy or cared to respect the dignity of Brett Kavanaugh until proven guilty. Then, why did she WhatsApp to Washington Post reporter as far back as July 6th? In preparation for what? In her testimony, she mentioned sense of urgency to relay the information to the Senate and the President as the reason. She did not, however, contact the Senate because, according to her, she did not know how to do that. Well, I guess it's time to look at her resume and her candidature. Christine Blasey Ford, full name Christine Margaret Blasey Ford, is a professor at Palo Alto University in California. Christine Ford's academic work has dealt with many psychological topics, including depression. Dr. Ford graduated from the University of North Carolina and then received a master's degree in psychology. Remember this, because in future you're going to learn how she used this for her advantage. She earned her doctorate in educational psychology at the University of Southern California, but she wants us to believe that she does not know how to type contact US Senate into Google or any search engine and find the contact information organized by topic. How do you contact senators? How do I contact Congress? How do I contact the House of Representatives? What is my senator's phone number? Etc. But wait, she never explained how she was able to contact the congresswoman but not her senator. But the first inconsistency is the date of the alleged assault. Dr. Ford has not offered a consistent account of when the alleged assault happened. In a July 6th text to the Washington Post, she said it happened in the mid-1980s. In her July 30th letter to Senator Feinstein, she said it happened in the early 80s. 7 days after, in the August 7th statement to the polygrapher, she said it happened one high school summer in early 80s. But she crossed out the word early for reasons she did not explain. A September 16th Washington Post article reported that Dr. Ford said it happened in the summer of 1982. Now we have a year. It's not mid-80s or early 80s or the summer in the early 80s. It's actually 1982 summer. The September 16 article reported that notes from an individual therapy session in 2013 show her describing the assault as occurring in her late teens. By the way, this notes doesn't ever have the word Kavanaugh in them. Keep that in mind. But she told the Post and the committee that she was 15 when the assault allegedly occurred. So according to her, 15 is late teens. Okay. She has not turned over her therapy records for the committee to review. I don't know why. Why didn't she turn her therapy records to the committee for review? That's an interesting question. Well, the Democrats don't want you to ponder on this question because they want you to just believe what they say about what they want you to believe. Well, while it is common for victims to be uncertain about dates, Dr. Ford failed to explain how she was suddenly able to narrow the time frame to a particular season and particular year. Dr. Ford has struggled to identify Judge Kavanaugh as the assailant by name several occasions. No name was given in her 2012 marriage therapy notes. No name was given in her 2013 individual therapy notes. By the way, these were the notes created by Dr. Ford. The actual therapy reports were not disclosed to the committee. Wonder why? Dr. Ford's husband claims to recall that she identified Judge Kavanaugh by name in 2012. At this time, Judge Kavanaugh's name was widely reported in the press as the potential Supreme Court nominee if Governor Romney won the presidential election, which means she actually knows about Judge Kavanaugh back in 2012. So what happened to her sense of urgency that made her reach out to the Washington Post instead of waiting for the Senate? Isn't that the reason what she gave for reaching out to the Washington Post? So what happened to her sense of urgency back in 2012 when Judge Kavanaugh is being nominated as a potential candidate for Governor Romney? In any event, it took Dr. Ford over more than 30 years to name her assailant. Once speaking with her husband, Dr. Ford changed her description of the incident to become less specific. I don't know, maybe she thought it is not as private as speaking to Washington Post. Maybe she felt that speaking to her husband is not a private moment. Maybe that's why she didn't disclose specific information and never named Brett Kavanaugh. Dr. Ford testified that she told her husband about a sexual assault before they were married, but she told the Washington Post that she informed her husband that she was the victim of physical abuse at the beginning of their marriage. I find it quite hard to believe that a professor of psychology, a master's and a doctorate degree holder in psychology, whose works include human psychology and depression, doesn't know the difference between sexual assault and physical abuse. If you just search for these two words and how they're defined in law and in several places online on the dictionary, you will see the difference. Even in the psychology texts, even in the human psychology text, gender studies, several places you will specifically know the difference between the sexual assault and physical abuse. But somehow this professor who holds a doctorate degree in psychology happens to forget the difference between sexual assault and physical abuse. Or did she? Did she know? the difference? Maybe there's a reason why she mentioned it as physical abuse to Washington Post. Maybe because that is the truth. You might be wondering why it is important to know the difference between sexual assault and physical abuse. There is importance for this because later you will realize that when she's expressing about the trauma or the post-traumatic stress disorder that she mentions, she says that this incident with Brett Kavanaugh contributed to her psychological impact. Remember, she's a professor and she says that it contributed, which means there is something else. Maybe that something else is the physical abuse, and probably that's the thing that she actually told her husband. And obviously when she's talking to Washington Post, she wanted to make sure that she's actually speaking truth because now it's public. She doesn't want to make any mistakes. So I believe that there's actually some physical abuse that happened in her life that she's hiding, which is the reason why she's not disclosing her therapy reports. Once those therapy reports have been revealed, we will know who actually caused trouble to her. Obviously it's not Brett Kavanaugh, according to me, because she never mentioned her name in her notes anywhere, neither to her husband or anywhere. And she's not revealing her therapy reports. So what is she hiding? Is she hiding the actual physical abuse that happened in her life?